Talk about macronutrient cycling. Most people eat the same things in similar proportions of carbohydrate, dietary fat, and protein every day. Right? Good. So that'll come in later. I'll ask you a question later, and we'll kind of demonstrate that. And it's a mistake. I believe a lot of people who, let's say, pay attention to their nutrition and exercise plans are very dogmatic. They get into a system, they prepare the same foods, they're the kind of personality types that like everything very similar, make it easy for them, but that begins to create a lot of problems secondarily to the monotony, which we'll go over today. And I say about, 20, 30 times a day, interacting with people by email and phone, eating clean, whatever the hell that means to you, is not enough to earn a low body fat percentage. And that blows a lot of people's minds. You have to manipulate the amounts of protein, carbohydrate, and dietary fat within a strategy that's highly advanced, yet simple to execute, to support your goals. And we're going to talk about exactly how the body responds to many of those things, somewhat in theory, but in working with clients now for over 20 years, I can tell you what I've seen work very, very well. That's what's most important, what you can produce for people. The goal when somebody approaches me who their focus is gaining muscle, if I can help them gain 10 pounds of muscle in 30 to 60 days, I feel very good about that. And I've got a very good percentage of getting it done if they're compliant with what I want to do. Now, compliance-wise, where I'm doing their training and nutrition programs, is it a matter of the program that's not quite right for them, or is there an issue with some kind of other problem with compliance? And before they run into any kind of difficulty, you want to kind of interact with the client and make sure you're making the right adjustments so the program fits their needs and not the other way around. I see a lot of coaches working with people and they're so rigid on certain things and it doesn't fit the schedule of the person, and then it's worthless if it can't be applied. Losing body fat at the same time while you're gaining muscle, hard thing to do. Some people would say in theory it's impossible. It can be done. I think it takes good genetics, good compliance, people that are younger, certainly men, more so in particular, can do it with the right programs. Benefits of macronutrient cycling, big word, not that complicated. Prevent metabolic staleness, right? If you're eating the same things all the time, the body gets acquainted to the similar amounts of protein, dietary fat, carbohydrate. I eat the same things, the meal times are all the same. The body gets stale with it fairly quickly. One of the interesting things, and I got to give Dr. Serrano in the back there credit for it, fat loading, dietary fat loading. His invention, not mine, but I've done a lot of playing with it. In theory, when you can increase dietary fat intake from organic sources and monounsaturated sources, I believe you can increase the amount of fat-burning enzymes the body makes significantly. And I've seen it work over and over with various dietary fat loading protocols that I've put into place with clients. Very interesting stuff. Everybody is so focused on carbohydrate. While that is one way to use macronutrient cycling and very important, there's other ways to vary your diet strategically to support your success. Also changing things, you can increase muscle building enzymes. You can naturally increase anabolic hormone levels, for example, dietary fat loading. I use it all the time as part of the 21-day fat cell cleanse, for example, where there's one high calorie day per week. We increase the dietary fat intake. I believe with the men in particular, they tell me they feel like their testosterone's higher, they feel more potent, so to speak, energy's better, body composition starts to improve, so there's a lot of good things that happen when we increase dietary fat from the right sources. One of the biggest mistakes I see right now, everybody is on a keto plan. Now, there are so many definitions of what that expletive is, it drives me crazy. I mean, someone told me yesterday he's on a lazy keto plan, which means he eats carbohydrates sometimes. Well, what the hell does that mean? I mean, I thought keto was like no carbs or death, or people send me emails. Keto for life is like one of their things, and it's just the idea that you should eliminate carbohydrate forever is wrong. And one of the interesting things that I've seen is after probably somewhere between 2 to 3 weeks when people are using a purely ketogenic plan, zero carbohydrate, maybe they're consuming some vegetables, progress slows down. And one of the things that I learned from Dr. Serrano is when he looks at blood work for these patients, in many cases, women in particular, zero carbohydrate, their thyroid tanks. And then losing body fat is very difficult. So some of these people want a badge of honor for being on a keto plan. Well, if the purpose is to lose body fat, you're not doing yourself any favors by following that. But again, it goes back to human nature. It's very simple for people to implement that once they make the change, but then changing foods or meal times on certain days, oh, that's mind-blowing. Oh, I can't do that. People need to be more flexible in many ways. Macronutrient cycling also gives you the ability to rotate foods so you can prevent food allergies, irritations, and intolerances. So going back to that, everybody wants to eat the same things all the time, right? If you ask any bodybuilder, these are a few things you're going to see in their diet almost through 95%. Eggs, whey protein, casein protein, and chicken breast. If those all were to disappear, it would be Armageddon. It would be, people would be, oh my, I mean, you know, they wouldn't know what to do. But over time, they're building allergies to those foods, and we'll talk about that in a later slide. And it becomes the new normal to drink a protein shake and feel like shit, right? Bloated, low energy, joint pain, ultimately difficulty losing body fat, difficulty gaining muscle. But what's the point? Because everybody says I need to have 2 to 3 shakes a day, and I've got to have a total of 6 to 7 meals, so this must be right. Wrong. We've learned a lot since 1995, right? Things change. We learn more based on research, of course, but also what we put into practice with real people to see what works. And I'm really proud of the fact that for 20 years, I've been helping clients personalize programs. And I was doing this back in 1999. I think I was one of the first, but I've been able to learn from a lot of successes and a lot of failures working with real clients to see what works, what doesn't, and learn a little bit about why. Techniques: dietary fat loading, carbohydrate loading. Everybody loves that. We do that a lot with a day 22 carb load, and I have a later slide into that. High calorie days. So a lot of people are oriented in their mind, if I'm going to eat a lot of food, it's got to be bad choices. Don't understand that mindset. There should be certain days when you're trying to lose body fat or gain muscle where your food intake increases from good sources to have a certain effect. It can increase metabolism, it can provide you more raw materials for muscle growth, right, if you're on those two spectrums. And you want to position those meals, I believe, on a weight training day. I think you're going to get the best bang for your buck. You're creating specific metabolic and hormonal conditions with training that allow you to do a lot with your post-workout nutrition to gain a lot of benefit. That's where the money's made, in my mind, is post-workout nutrition. Versus other meals are important, but that's one you've got to get right. Fasting, very popular. It's good. Now, I, no kidding, got an email from somebody not long ago that says they are going on a 24-hour fast 7 days a week. So I said, you realize that means you don't eat at all? They said, well, actually, whatever. But the point is that there's a lot of people, let's say they call them experts, I put that in quotes, but some of these people do not work with real people. Do not do the shit they say they're doing, and somehow find a way to monetize it, and all of a sudden they're an expert, because they're all over YouTube. And I've corresponded with some of these people. It's very interesting. Fasting needs to have a gradual implementation. Otherwise, you are going to fail miserably, and then it ends up with a lot of binge eating and other problems. But starting with a 12-hour fast and progressing to a 16-hour fast, I've seen work very, very well, especially if 8 of those hours are sleeping, for example. So fasting does have a lot of benefits, but you don't want to fast for the same amount of time every day. Like other factors in terms of your meals that need to change, your fasted lengths also need to change at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. And I do that making it very simple by changing up the meal structure. So clients or yourself, like if you guys want the 21-day fat cell cleanse, I'll email it to you. It spells it all out. It's not hard. It's meant to be highly advanced yet simple to execute, because this shouldn't be a very stressful thing. Went over all that.